Okay, so let's apply some of this wonderfully practical and objective approach to some of the most common ills that we face in organisations. And one that I often come up against, and I'm sure you do too, is the manager, the leader who says, Rod, this is all very well and good. The whole 1 to 7 would be 1 to 4 would be lovely. I manage 12 people. Not only do I manage 12 people, but I've also got some technical objectives to get as well. I've got to write proposals, liaise with clients, I've got to win the work, etc., etc. What advice do you have for these people?
The advice would be supportive, or at least let's say advice to the organisation is if you're asking a mere mortal human being manager to look after significantly more than 9, and 12's significant, so 12 to 16 people, it's of benefit knowing about human instincts to this organisation to know that that job is designed to be dysfunctional. That's beyond the natural sized group. The symptoms will be that a manager can't possibly support a unit that size. The group will start breaking off into cliques. There will be dysfunction between that group and another, with other groups waiting on output for that group. The group's performance will suffer, and what those managers that you quote will be really revealing is their intuition or knowledge and feeling and experience that their job's undoable. And so for organisations wanting to apply this knowledge, they would first of all design their organisation to be functional, which is to avoid very large teams but also very small teams. If we humans are in a small team of 1 or 2 people reporting to a manager, 1/1, 1/2 reporting, then that's almost equally dysfunctional because it's not a large enough group to feel a sense of identity and belonging.
I can imagine some CEOs saying, but Rod, 1 per 7, I can't afford that. You've got to be kidding.
The important point would be to know that there are trade-offs. If you fight against human nature, and if you convince yourself that a mere mortal human managing 16 people is okay because you don't want to put in place a supervisory level or extra supervisors, there will be trade-offs, and I can almost guarantee that if senior executives look at units within their organisation that are not performing, where engagement's low, productivity low, where there's dysfunctionality and cliques, they will be either the very large groups, that is way beyond 9 people, or equally the very small groups with 1/1, 1/2 reporting.
So the message there is for CEOs to perhaps be more aware of the intangibles and less conscious of the tangibles.
Well, the natural inclination and fitting where possible with the natural systems, but also if a chief executive convinces themselves that a manager should look after these 16 people, then another option is to invest a lot in the support of that manager. Good systems, good training, good support, maybe secretarial help, whatever it might be. You have to do extraordinary things because you're asking the person to do an unnatural job.
Yes, let's talk about cliques, because this is one of the big bugbears that many leaders have to face on a daily basis is, Rod, I've got so much wastage when my departments don't talk to each other. What can we suggest here?
It adds a natural explanation of that observation, and that observation is that we will bond closer to a group of about 150, given that our organisations are much larger than 150 in many cases. Then it means that we won't connect as one of 10,000 or one of 100,000, and therefore we will bond more intimately with our unit, our department, our geography, which then says for organisations or executives to structure your organisation according to, given that there will be a bond, where do you want the strongest bond to be? And then secondly, to monitor for any destructive competitive rivalries.
Another issue that would be invaluable here is the area of leadership and perhaps more broadly fellowship. So what is it the Hardwired Humans has to offer both me as a leader and also me as a team member?
From a leader's perspective, it's a very empowering message that says it is very natural that in our small groups there be a leader, and then there be a village leader and a tribal leader. So it's very empowering for leaders to know that it is natural for them to be in their role. It's also handy to know that there's certain leadership styles that we naturally much prefer, and that is the constructive style rather than the fear-generating tyrannical style. So that's a very important message of one of empowerment of leadership. In terms of, and then also for leaders, there's a message about followership, which is that people much prefer a secure environment where there's healthy relationships amongst team members. And one of the key messages again from Jane Goodall is this sense of social harmony, and that's what really the followers enjoy during the reign of a constructive leader.
What about change? What about organisations going through change?
Oh, there's huge insight, and it starts with busting the conventional myth that people resist change. You've probably heard that a number of times, and that's quite a burden that managers and leaders get lumbered with. If we look through the lens of human instincts, we clearly see that as a species we can't possibly be wired to resist change. If we were, we'd be still living in caves. As humans, we're very happy with change, provided it covers one of these 9 instincts, and that instinct is that it avoids loss. That the change for me, it might be a restructure, it might be a relocation, it might be a new software technology, and what I'm screening for is to instantly know what that means to me and does it involve loss. Loss is a greater motivator than gain, and so I'm not actually screening for gain, but if I learn, when I hear about that change, that change for me is good, I might get a promotion out of the restructure, then don't tell me that's a bad change. If I instantly know that it's loss, well, I clearly classify it accurately as loss. The big swinger is that if at the first moment when I hear about the change, I don't know how it's going to affect me, then invariably I will err on the side of the negative.
Okay, I like that. That's really nice. People don't resist change, they resist loss. That's quite empowering because that then helps us restructure our message and perhaps our whole change approach.
Well, it does, and it also makes a huge difference to the way executives approach change, and the way they position it, the way they communicate it, the way they think about it, the way they handle people's responses.
So who are the organisations who are implementing this and what results are they getting?
Well, one is Philips in terms of, so talking about change management. So Philips was about to implement a restructure and brought their leaders to the zoo. And so while at the zoo, getting across human instincts, we then workshopped the change, and it was rolled out, and to quote the MD and the HR director, better than any change they've done in the past. So that's one. Thales, the global engineering firm, applies human instincts around change management and HR practices. Another example, no credit to me, Flight Centre. I say no credit to me because their chief executive was inspired by Nigel Nicholson's work 13 years ago, the same time as I was, and they rolled out a structure called families, villages and tribes. And so when people go past a Flight Centre store next and look in the window, you'll see no more than 7 staff operating that store.
Andrew, we face a lot of complex problems. You know, there's drugs, there's arms trafficking, there's war, there's corrupt governments, poverty, pandemics, population growth, sustainability, to name but a few. What is it that Hardwired Humans has to offer civilization, has to offer humanity and perhaps even the planet?
I think my contribution might be a little modest according to that phenomenal list, but I hope to make an impact on this building block that we have in our societies of organisations. And a lot of people in a lot of organisations find that they're somewhat dysfunctional and they're somewhat suppressive in terms of places to spend our day. And the aim of knowing about human instincts is twofold. One, that we then bring into consciousness what it is to be natural and to construct our organisations naturally. And as a consequence of that, then leaders can make some good informed choices.
Couple of things are for sure. Solving these complex problems are going to take enlightened organisations led by enlightened leaders, and dysfunction and suppression ain't going to help. Andrew OKeeffe has made a wonderful contribution with his work and book, Hardwired Humans, and I would strongly recommend Andrew to anyone who needs to get things done through others. Andrew OKeeffe, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rod.